Welcome along. Council houses in Britain should go to British people first. Brits should be at the top of the queue. Social housing should not be going to people who can't speak a word of English and who clearly haven't integrated. British taxpayers are right to feel like they're at the back of the queue, being asked to pay for everybody else who's gone before them. Step forward, Westminster Council, who released this video to tell people about changes to social housing. Just tell me what you notice here.
نقوم في بلدية ويستمنستر حالياً بتغيير طريقة عمل الإسكان الاجتماعي.
আমরা আপনারা জানাতাম স্যার যে ওয়েস্টমিনস্টার কাউন্সিল আমরা হাউজিং রেজিস্টার সিস্টেম রে বদলাইতাম আপনারা লাগি সহজ করবার লাগি
Nous changeons la manière dont nous attribuons les logements sociaux à Westminster.
What does that tell you about the people who are getting social housing in Britain right now? They're not British, are they? The average rent in Westminster is apparently £3,154 a month. You probably couldn't afford to live there, who can really? But you are paying for it. You're paying for foreign nationals who can't speak a word of English to live there. 48% of all social housing in London is taken up by foreign nationals. 72% of Somalis in Britain live in social housing. That's 4 times higher than the wider population. This has been going on for years. A Somali family on benefits were handed a £2 million luxury house in Islington back in 2017. At the time, it would have cost £6,000 a month to rent that. They got it with welfare for £1,000. Labour's Westminster Council actually deleted that video that I just showed you there. They say it's because it didn't convey their ideal message. I actually think it did. They care more about people who can't speak English than they do about hard-working taxpayers. And what about veterans? Veteran homelessness rose by 14% last year. Apparently, there are more than 2,000 homeless servicemen and women right now. We could house them overnight if we wanted to, but no. We should be prioritising people like this. A Sudanese refugee family who has lived in Britain for 5 years were complaining about having to move accommodation. Do you know how they expressed their concern? Through the medium of their 9-year-old son, who they had to use as an interpreter because presumably they can't speak English. 5 years they've been here. Guess what? We're going to get a lot more of this, aren't we? Because Angela Rayner ditched plans to prioritise British nationals for social housing. Oh, and in other news that's broken in the past hour, now try not to scream too much at your television, Britain is now the Western capital for Sharia courts. We now have 85 Sharia courts, which I think is just another example of how integration is failing. More on the old Sharia court saga later in the show. I've said it before, I'll say it again. When Labour tell you that you can't oppose housing developments in your village or town and they want to build their 1.5 million homes, what they're not telling you is who they're going to put in those homes. Let's get a thought to my panel this evening. We have got the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, landlord and activist, Adam Brooks, and we've also got broadcaster Nina Mishkov. Yeah, so a bit tone deaf, do you think, Mark, advertising changes to social housing in a catalogue of different languages?
Completely tone deaf, and there's so many things wrong here. I think we've got to unpack them. I mean, I think it actually shows one of the great benefits of social media isn't just that we can discuss different ideas on it. It trips people up when they do something stupid. They realised, once they'd posted this, that this was going to go down like a cup of cold sick, basically. We've discussed on this show before how we should deal with languages. My view is I don't think you necessarily need to be forced to speak English, but if you can't, the interpreter and the costs of that should be wholly on you. So we should be English only for English public housing requirements. But then the second bit, Patrick, and this is a wider issue, is the sheer cost of the social housing that we're offering. Yeah. I mean, what next? We're going to say, would Sir like a sea view? Do you want to be somewhere, close and proximate to leisure facilities, as if you're offering a hotel? I think it should be much more minimal, whoever you're housing, at the taxpayer's cost, not these sort of £3,000 a month rent in Westminster. I like
what you said there, as if we're offering a hotel.
Yeah, we are offering a hotel. But these are actually houses we're talking about. If you can't get the hotel, then you have to make do with a house in Islington.
A £2 million townhouse in Islington. Exactly. I know, it says to me, so 48%, I don't want to be too London-centric. The only reason I'm using this figure is because it's relevant in this case, right? But basically, half of social housing in our capital city is taken up by foreign nationals. I think we've got plenty of people who are British nationals who could probably be living there instead.
I've just done a bit of Christmas shopping, Oxford Street, and it doesn't look like England anymore. And that's not me being racist, or that is me observing. This country, especially London, is changing rapidly, and that is down to mass immigration. To have 48% of our social housing by foreign-born people is letting down the native people of this country. There are people in my district, I know people that their kids are in their 20s. They're putting their kids up because their kids are on a waiting list for social housing. We are letting these people down. The money is, you know, our taxpayers' money is going down like a sieve. You know, it's being washed away by these foreigners coming here and gaming our system. I'm really shocked, and I'm really pessimistic about the future under the Labour government. Because as you said, Angela Rayner removed the requirement to live here 10 years, was it, before you could get social housing. Why would they do that when they know it's such a problem?
Yeah. Well,
the future for the next generations in this country is very bleak.
You know, I think people can tolerate certain cultural changes or, you know, physical changes and all of that kind of stuff in their area. It sticks in the craw when you realise you're paying for it as well. And that's clearly what we're doing here. We're paying for people to come and live and have a house.
You mentioned that it's Westminster and it's an expensive area. Now, if there is social housing in Westminster, which there is, it doesn't matter who goes into it. It really doesn't. If you fit the criteria and you're say given 5 years residency, then you are a human being and you can apply. And it's such hypocrisy that we English, British people should complain about foreigners not speaking our language. We are the laziest nation in the world at speaking anything other than English.
See, it's an interesting point, that, because it's a point that I've made before. I occasionally joke. I'm terrible with other languages. Terrible.
Same.
When I go abroad, I can ask for the bill and whatever. I can't even ask for a pint.
You're contributing.
I'm allowed to drink. But I'm paying my way, Nina.
And how do you know? How do you know?
Well, because they're living in social housing. We're by definition.
Yes, but they could have they could have jobs. They really could have jobs.
Well, then why are they living?
Well, then they should be in private housing.
Well, if they that's not necessarily the case. You sometimes can't afford the
they're being
private
subsidised
housing.
by the taxpayer.
They're being subsidised. But the thing is, on that video, you showed two kind of Middle Eastern languages, and you also showed French. There was also Spanish. Now, do you oppose the Spanish being here or the French being here?
It's not about whether they're here. It's what languages are we going to use.
No.
So I'm heading off to Tenerife tomorrow. My Spanish is pretty ropey, but I'm paying for my own hotel.
Yeah.
Like Patrick, I'll pay my way.
Yeah, fair enough. You're on holiday.
I try to pick up a bit of Spanish, but I'm not expecting anything from the government of Tenerife other than to use my money to fuel their economy.
If you went to live in, say, Madrid, which is equivalent to London and obviously has expensive areas,
I would try and learn Spanish.
You would try and learn Spanish.
The taxpayers pay for his house either.
Yeah.
But you would be perfectly entitled to that. In France, for instance, in Paris, they have 25% of the population live in social housing, and they do this deliberately so they have middle and lower class people who to diversify, to populate the area so that it is more diverse, so that people can integrate. Now, you don't...
How's that going?
Because otherwise, Westminster... Very well. Westminster is a rich ghetto.
Right.
It's much better. And also, Adam, you said you were shocked. What I'm shocked at is you saying you walked down Oxford Street and it didn't look like England. What is England supposed to look like?
Well, I was one of very few white faces walking down Oxford Street.
And what's the problem with that?
No, there is no problem with that, Nina. And again, I know what you're trying to do to paint me as racist, but this is an 84% white country.
You are the only person who's used the word racist.
So
how very fascinating that is.
What are you leaning to? This is
I'm just asking you a question.
White country. So the demographic of Britain is 84% white.
Yes,
so
but London is different.
No, I've mentioned...
London is diverse,
I've
which is why I live here.
Whitechapel on this programme before. and it upset a few people. But I can walk from one end of Whitechapel to the other end, and I might not hear one person speaking English. It's lack of integration.
And that's what's wrong with
that? The other
that?
aspect to that is...
What's wrong with that?
But the other aspect
Nothing wrong with it.
seriously, is that's one thing in itself. But if you then look at some of the statistics when it comes to social housing, there is also a good chance, Adam, that your taxpayers' money is going for quite a large number of those people to live in social housing.
Well,
and that's the double whammy,
Patrick,
isn't it?
some of them are getting two-bedroom apartments or houses for £677 a month. Someone could, you know, our kids could dream of that. Living in central London for £677 per month. What a touch. We are being gamed severely.
Isn't that the key thing here? That for highly expensive properties should be a private sector matter. I mean, I can imagine some exceptions. Somebody who needs social housing, their entire family and support base happens to be uniquely based in Westminster. OK, maybe you need to put them up in Westminster. But I actually think that insofar as we're offering people housing, we should find basically cheap and affordable housing for them. Not Mayfair or Westminster or Chelsea. These colossally expensive.
But granted that there is social housing in Westminster, granted that there is social housing in Westminster, it should be utilised.
Well, I'd encourage the tenants to buy it.
Should you say it shouldn't be?
I'd have much easier for the tenants to buy the property.
Patrick, I've spoken to a whistleblower before in a housing charity, and a lot of these migrants are foreign-born, kick off so aggressively if they're tried to be housed outside of London, and they threaten. And a lot of the times, these authorities or these charities back down and put them in London.
This is pure hearsay. This is
what they want.
This is not a,
He's claiming he's got
study.
So we'll have to take that face value, to be fair. And there are, I think, situations when you look at the homeless veterans. Now, OK, there can be multiple different issues with certain people who've maybe got issues as a result of their service. We all understand what those can be: mental health issues, PTSD, and some of the things that they can lead to. And I understand that not every single one of those people leads the kind of life where realistically you could put them in social housing. However, the vast majority of them will. And when I saw that video, I thought they obviously felt confident enough to put it out before they withdrew it. And I thought, well, what's every council really doing now? When you look around your local area, it does, for me, it begs the question: are we seriously in every council across the country now willing to accommodate in large numbers people who have not learned English? And you look at the case that the BBC ran earlier, a chap who lived here from Sudan 5 years. 5 years, use their 9-year-old son as an interpreter. It doesn't scream integration, but we are off to a lively start. Thank you very much, everybody. Westminster Council has got back to us. They said, we took the video down because it did not convey the message we wanted it to. They added, the council complies with the national criteria for allocating council homes to our local residents, prioritising those with the greatest need. We provide translations into commonly spoken languages to ensure anyone entitled to apply for social housing is able to understand and follow the process. So make of that what you will.